Hello guys, again welcome to my channel, and this one is another sharing 101. Our topic for today is about how to get the trailer type effect of orchestration. There are two ways on how to attain the trailer type, or there are two types of settings: the trailer type effect setting, and the other one is the proximity effect settings. So here, a reverb plugin is involved on how to use, on how to apply it in our orchestration. Okay, so in our part one, I will show you the trailer type reverb, or the stereo wide setting reverb. Okay, so now I'll just play this one, the 20th Century Fox theme logo. Okay. Okay. It has a very gigantic sound. Okay. If you notice, I have used the BBCSO, the Spitfire BBCSO Professional, for my woodwinds, my brass, as well as my percussion section. In my brass, I also layered the Spitfire Abbey Road 1 Orchestral Foundation VST plugin. Okay. And here in my strings, we have a different brand of VST. This one is the Cinematic Studio strings. So it's a different library, and for almost everybody, it's I think it's they have a hard time on how to mix different libraries for an orchestra. Okay, so one main thing is, if you have different libraries, you have to use this one. You have to set your reverb in 0 setting. Okay, all of your libraries, okay, as well as the brass, see, 0 reverb. Okay, percussion here at the piatti or cymbals, reverb is 0. Okay, as well as the Cinematic Studio strings, see, reverb is 0. Okay, so the next step on how to use the stereo wide reverb is this one. Let me put this one at the violins one and open the EQ section. So here, if you notice, I have a high pass filter here. The purpose of the high pass filter is to clean the lower frequency part of the violins, and it's one of the biggest factor on how to set your stereo wide reverb. Okay, so here I'll play the violins one, and the purpose is, if you notice the first partial or the fundamental note, you have to use your high pass filter up to the fundamental note or partial one, like this one, that one. that one. Again. One more time. That one. So you have to put your high pass filter at least at the tip of that partial one. So you have to use that high pass filter for all of your instruments. Okay, so violins 2, again, there's a high pass filter up to the contrabass. Yeah, here. Okay, so let me share to you the contrabass. That one. Okay, yeah, let me adjust that one. Yeah. Okay, so that's the high pass filter. Okay, to clean the lower frequency. Okay, and in our percussion section, again, there's a high pass filter for the piatti, but in our snare we don't put high pass filter. One thing is we have to put high pass filter on those instruments that has a high frequency sound, like the cymbals, this one. Okay, for the timpani we have no high pass filter. Don't put high pass filter on your lower sounding percussion instruments. Just the high pitch instruments like cymbals, piatti, triangle, all those glockenspiel, xylophone, celesta. So you have to use those high pass filter. And here in our brass, don't use high pass filter for your brass instruments. No high pass filter. Okay, and then going to our woodwinds, we have a high pass filter. We have to put high pass filter for all of the woodwinds, from flute up to bassoon. Okay, so let me demonstrate this for you. This the flute, the solo flute. That one. That one. Okay, at the tip of the partial one. Okay, to clean up the lower frequency spectrum. Okay, next step is we have to use reverbs for each section of the orchestra. Okay, so here I have a string reverb, I have a woodwind reverb, brass reverb, and percussion reverb. And we have to use the same plugin. So here I use the Valhalla Vintage Verb. Okay, Valhalla Vintage Verb. Okay, so before setting your reverb for this one, let me show you the reverbs for all sections of the orchestra. Okay, so here in our strings, I have a reverb at around negative 13.4, because the strings is the nearest one on the near the conductor. Okay, the conductor of the orchestra. So it's negative 13.4. I set that one by using my ears. Okay, so strings, the nearest on the conductor, you have to set it at around here. And then uh, uh, at the back, or the seating arrangement of the woodwind, is about at the back of the string section. So here in our string section, I increase the reverb at around 2 increments from the strings with 13.4 reverb. Here I increase the reverb because the woodwinds is farther away from the conductor. So it's at negative 10 for all woodwind instruments. Okay, so at the back of the woodwinds are the brass. So here at the brass section, again I increase the reverb at around 2 increments from the winds, which is negative 10. So here it's at least negative uh, 8.13, or you can use 8.0. Okay, so all of the brass is negative 8, somewhere on that increment. And then at the back of the brass, the farthest is the percussion. So at around again increase at around 2 increments or 3 increments. I set my percussion at negative 5 because they are the farthest from the conductor. Okay, so that's it. And then let's go to our vintage or Valhalla vintage verb. I will open the strings here, and then I'll open the winds. Okay, brass, and the last one is the percussion. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So first thing is we have to this is the secret for a very clear reverb, no muddiness or whatsoever. Okay. First thing is we have to on our strings here, the most important thing here is how to configure the pre-delay, the decay, and the EQ of the Valhalla vintage verb. So here, this is what I have learned from a professional orchestrator and mock-up composer. You have to use the high cut and the low cut setting of the EQ of the Valhalla vintage verb. So here, why do we have to use the high cut EQ for our reverb? Why? Because if you notice, we use the high pass filter on the first partial of the instrument, so it cuts down the lower frequency, so it clean the lower frequency, and then here it will compensate for the wideness of the frequency range of the instrument. So at the high cut filter, you have to set your high cut filter at around 11,000 hertz. That is the lowest position for a wide stereo setting. Okay, so 11,000 hertz or 11 kilohertz. And here at our low cut filter, you have to set it to 100 hertz. So the high pass filter for the EQ is set to the first partial, so it cleaned the lower frequency, and the reverb will compensate for the wideness at the bottom frequency. Okay, and then our decay time in acoustics of music, the most or the possible setting for a decay time is around 1 second to 3 seconds. That is the maximum decay time, 3 seconds. So I set my strings at around the 3 seconds. And then the pre-delay. The pre-delay is the first reflection of the sound going to the wall of the hall. So here I set the pre-delay at around 50 milliseconds because the strings is the nearest to the conductor, and the reflection is the travel of the reflection is quite far, going to the wall of the hall and going back to the conductor. So that's why this is the milliseconds for the pre-delay. Okay, this is the milliseconds. Okay, next, the winds. The same thing with the winds. The setting for the high cut filter is the same, 11,000 hertz, and 100 hertz for the low cut filter. The same decay time, 3 seconds, but our pre-delay is decreased by 10 increments or 10 milliseconds. So we have to position the woodwinds at the back of the strings. That's why we have to decrease the pre-delay at around 40 milliseconds. Okay, so the reflection time is they are very comparing it to the strings, they are much near to the sound will bounce to the wall and going back to the conductor. That is why we have to decrease the pre-delay. Okay, and then next one, the brass. Here in our brass, if you notice, our pre-delay is at around 30 milliseconds because they are more near to the wall of the hall. That is why we have to set this one at around, again, at 10 milliseconds increment, so less than 10 milliseconds. So we have to set this at around 30 milliseconds. And then the low cut filter for the brass is the same thing. The low cut filter is 100 hertz, but our high cut filter is set to at around 4,000 hertz. It's according to my taste, because if you set this to 11,000 hertz, the sound of the brass will become metallic, okay, very thin. That is why I have to set the high cut filter by using my ears at around 3,000 or 4,000 hertz or less, okay, 3,500, but for me it works at around 3,900 hertz. Okay, and then the last one, the percussion section. So if you notice, the pre-delay of the percussion section is much less than the brass, because the percussion section is the one very near to the wall of the hall, and you have to set the pre-delay at around here 20 milliseconds. So if you notice, from strings, winds, brass, and percussion, so from 50, 40, 30, 20 milliseconds, the same decay. And the high cut filter is the same thing, 11,000 hertz, and the low cut filter is 100 hertz. That is why my mock-up sounds very big or very wide because of those pre-delays. If you notice, there are no muddiness in the reverb settings, or even if you use headphones for this one, you can your ears will detect the seating arrangement of the players of the orchestra. The nearest to the conductor are the string section. The next section at the back of the strings are the woodwinds, and at the back of the woodwinds are the brass players, and at the back of the brass players are the percussion players. So that's why that is the pre-delay. The one nearest to the conductor has a high pre-delay, and the one who is farthest away from the conductor has a very small pre-delay. It's different with reverb. Reverb, you have one that is farthest away has a greater reverb compared to the nearest to the conductor, that is the strings, has a less reverb. So it has a different settings. So again, we play this 20th century Fox theme. Yeah. Okay. Now we experiment. How about muting or bypass? We bypass the Valhalla reverb. All of the Valhalla reverb from strings, winds, brass, and percussion. Let's listen on how this sounds. Okay, so it has a very big effect without the reverb. Listen. Have you noticed? The sound is so unbalanced, very unbalanced. Why? Because we have different libraries, cinematic studio strings against the Spitfire libraries. And if you notice, even if you set your reverb at 0 for Spitfire libraries, you can still hear the ambience of the hall where the libraries are sampled. Maybe that's the effect of the Spitfire libraries. Compare it to the the strings of the cinematic studio strings. No, if we solo this one, uh, let's listen. See, it's very dry compared to the Spitfire libraries. Okay, so that's the purpose of setting our reverb in our user interface to 0 reverb. Okay, so let's again engage our Valhalla reverb and compare it with 0 reverb. Okay, one more time. again. Yeah, it has a very wide stereo reverb setting. Okay, and one more thing is we have to go to our mix bus. This is my template for my mix bus. Um, on my first chain, or my first plugin on the chain, is I use the AMEC mastering compressor of Plugin Alliance, and I set it to mix bus aggressive. Okay, and then the second in the chain is another Plugin Alliance brand, the Kirchhoff EQ, and then I just boost um, at around 123 hertz, and then the mid I boosted at around 2k, and the high frequency I boosted at around 21 kilohertz. Very small boosting, okay, at around 2 dB. And then next one, again, I used uh, a compressor, an opto compressor with zero setting, and I just boosted the output level of this one because this Millennium brand of compressor and EQs, they give character to the sound, very mild. You cannot actually hear it, but you can feel it. Okay, and then the next one after the EQ, and then the compressor, again I use the Millennia EQ with zero settings, just to add character on that one. And then the free Slate Digital Fresh Air, you have to download this one, it's free. I just boosted the high frequency at around 10 and the mid frequency at around 5%. And then this one, it gives a loudness to the mix. It's only $29. It's from Sir Audio Tools. This is the standard clip, and I boosted the gain at around 2 dB, and then the clipping at the neutral at 0 dB. And then I boosted the clipping at the ceiling, yeah, here. And then oversampling, the standard is ×4. And then after that, I use the maximizer of Cubase, and I set it to negative 4.8 dB. Okay, with an optimized loudness at around 25%. Okay, with a soft clip. Okay, and then the last one, it's another Cubase limiter, and then here I boosted the input at around 5 dB and the output at around negative 3.7 dB. Okay, and then the release time, I set it to auto release. Okay, so if we go to our mix console, this is the mix bus and the stereo out. Okay, so here I have done my what you call this, the gain staging of our instruments. If you notice, the strings and the winds are much less in volume, because that's the reality. the strong or the loudest section is the brass section. Okay, so that's my gain stage. So let's play this again. Okay, let's play this again, and just look at the mix bus and the stereo out with this negative 3.7 dB. Okay, let's play this one. So that's my metering for this 20th Century Fox theme logo. So that's it, guys. So see you guys another time for another sharing 101. So the next topic is about the proximity effect reverb. Okay, bye-bye.